And thank all of you out there for taking the time to tune in to what I think was an absolutely brilliant conversation with David Icke. The amount of subjects that we managed to cram into 1 hour, it's mind blowing. I listened to David recently at his Glasgow presentation, and he took 4 hours to lay out pretty much everything we got into there. We managed to condense it, cram it in, but I urge you all to check out more from David Icke. And when I set out on trying to get David onto the show, I had a particular mission in mind. Because over here in the UK, we all remember 30 years ago, if you're old enough to do so, when David Icke was on the Wogan show, and he was absolutely ridiculed. And for years, year after year after year, in the mainstream media, they continued to ridicule David Icke. And just recently, with such a new kind of swathe of people coming to alternative media to check out all of this information, I've noticed that a lot of the newcomers to this, they have preconceived ideas, and in particular when it comes to David Icke. You know, you say David Icke and it's almost synonymous with reptilians, and I purposely didn't go anywhere near that topic today. And the reason for doing so is because I think a lot of people have been missing out on some really critical information at this time, all because of a really clever media manipulation job. The irony being that David Icke would have been the one person that could explain exactly how they're able to do this. So Joe Joseph, he was really a good litmus test for today. Somebody who hasn't really listened to David Icke. And it's not to have a go at Joe or anyone else who hasn't listened to him and maybe just cast him by the wayside because of all this crazy talk about reptilians and all that kind of stuff. But Joe, about 10 minutes into the interview, said, Kev, this is absolutely amazing. He sounds just like us. And that's why he's so dangerous. Because he's not talking about reptilians and stuff like they used to ridicule him on the Wogan show for. He's exposing the agenda. He's exposing the people behind it. He's exposing how they do it. And more importantly, why they do it. And he has been doing for 30 years. So I had hoped to achieve one thing today, to get one person, even just one, to look at David Icke in a new light. And I think after that amazing interview that we just heard there, I think that probably mission accomplished. What do you think, Joe?
I think he did great, man. I think you guys did great. That was a wonderful interview. That was great.
And like I say, so many people out there, and it's no criticism of anyone, Joe, but you say Icke, and like I say, word association, reptilians. However, as I was saying to you...
It's what he's known for. You know, unfortunately, there are things that you might say or you might do that end up getting you almost typecasted in a way. You know what I mean? These defining moments that, if anything, the powers that shouldn't be, they know how to exploit a weakness. And they'll use any sort of... That's like that political... dark play that goes on all the time. Whenever you see the, the politics and the political cycles, and they dig up dirt and they do all that kind of stuff. And boy, they know how to dig up and just stab into old wounds again, and just cut them open. That's what they do. And I mean, with Icke, it's that way because he did say some crazy crap a long time ago, but it's because he was kind of like he was ahead of his time. Really, that's what it was. He was just ahead of his time.
It's like when we all go through that early awakening stage of truth spewing. Blah, 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 all comes out, chemtrails, vaccines, every single topic, all in one go.
What he said isn't necessarily crazy. It's just no one was ready for that. You know what I mean? It's just you can't start talking reptilians and everything else. It's like baby steps. You got to get there. You got to get there. Build it. And it's kind of like you say, it's like truth puke. It all comes out, and sometimes when that happens, bad things. And it gives them fodder. So, yeah, but I mean, today's interview highlighted, I personally want to file a copyright claim because that crap sounded a lot like what we say, Kev. So, maybe, if he wants to kind of hang out with us on Freaky, it'd be fine. We could do that.
Well, as you heard, he will be coming back on September, October time. And he had a great time today. It was absolutely brilliant. But he was one of the first people that really led me to quantum mechanics, Joe.
Yeah.
Because he used to talk about how the table in front of us, physically, when you get down to that quantum level, the particles and everything else, because they're both a wave and a particle at the same time, even the solid nature of reality all around us, the way we decode it, it's not exactly the way things are. So he led me into kind of thinking for myself, seeing through the political paradigm and also the world of quantum, this multi-dimensional, many worlds type reality we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's some pretty heavy stuff. Interestingly enough, though.
Well, we'll get it on the other side, folks. Don't go anywhere.
Cool.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, on our very special broadcast of KBS on Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com. I'll be rolling on over after the break into hour number 3 of today's Kev Baker Show, hour number 2 of the Joker Link, with my good friend here. Here's my good friend here, Joe Joseph.
Yes.
And Joe, like I was saying, immediately after the Ike interview had concluded there, I really did find you a really good litmus test. And for anyone new out there who might not have heard a lot from David Icke before, I hope that really gave you maybe a different way of looking at him and his information. And Joe, look at just recently, we had him speaking in Glasgow. And like I said to you, I was joking with you, I think, on one of the streams, it might have been Ben last night. It was almost like a secret mission, You had to wait till 24 hours before he was due to speak, and then you got somewhere where you had to go and meet. They put a black bag over your head and they would take you to this secret location in a field. Okay, I go too far, right? But 24 hours notice, that's all we got as to the venue. And that was because of anti-Semitic groups out there wanting to put a stop to David from speaking. And when he went to Australia, as opposed to him having hassle with the venues, just before he was set to travel there to speak at a number of locations, they absolutely banned him. They took away his visa.
What you do if that's the case, dude, and they do that, you go there with nail bats and do it Black Panther style. That's what you do. Honest to God, because what the hell? At some point, we're going to have to say, look at soy boys, you're not going to freaking push us around anymore. And you just stand there with a nail bat, ready to do battle, dude. That's the only thing you can do at this point. I mean, what the hell? Are we just going to keep getting pushed around? I don't get it. That nothing he said tonight was any different than anything that I or you or
why he's dangerous, Joe. Just recently, I think it was a couple of years ago, he was at Wembley Arena. That holds about 4,000 people. And this is the kind of place where you'd have a boxing gig, a small rock concert, pop band, that kind of thing. He's filling that place out to the point where people couldn't get a ticket. And when you start bringing that many people together and you start talking about the topics, which we talk about here all the time and David exposes for year after year, I think that's the problem, Joe, because he isn't preaching hate. He isn't preaching division. And in fact, when you boil it all down, he's preaching pure love and bringing people together historically. He's never been good for one's health, right? You can look at MLK. You can look at various people throughout history who've tried that. And as long as they're dividing people, they're good to go. But the minute they start bringing people together, pointing out the agendas and naming the characters, exactly, dude.
Get killed. Yeah, that's what ends up happening. Look at Gandhi. You brought up MLK. They're even trying to smear MLK now in the media. If you noticed, they just had a story out where they say that, MLK, he had 40 to 45 affairs and actually witnessed a rape. And how the hell these days could you trust anything you hear? Oh, good. The FBI tapes have been released of the surveillance of Martin Luther King. Like, this guy died almost, over 40 years ago? That's giving you a lot of time to doctor some stuff.
And we've had Joe Rogan just recently shocked at the level of AI, the deep fakes. Yeah. And you think of all the speeches that MLK had done over the years.
Many.
You put that into a data set, and what it spits out at the other end, it sounds like, MLK or whoever else you want to paint in a bad light.
Exactly, man. So to me, you can't trust. I would seriously consider the source when you look at the vilification of these icons. And something to remember about everybody here is that we tend to put people on a pedestal. Something I didn't hear him say, but we tend to put people on the pedestal. And I think it's pretty important to say that, because what it does is it almost deifies that person. And when you talk about tying identities to cults of personality or people, it's important to note the worship that goes along with it, because it is used for control more so than anything else. And people are so desperate to not be alone. It's like, it is one of the driving fears of a human being, is the fear of being alone. And they exploit it because they know that that fear is paramount in the human psyche. It just is. We're programmed to not want to be alone. We're programmed to be almost tribal in nature and kind of seek to cleave together in tight-knit communities. That's where we thrive. Somehow along the line, we got mixed up. But what we do typically is we will deify that person, and you look at Gandhi, you look at MLK, we'll use those two just for examples. They were human beings, they were fallible. They made mistakes. They did things that were probably wrong. But they did a hell of a lot of good. And one bad egg doesn't spoil the dozen when you talk about a person's life in totality. We make mistakes. It's what we do when we learn from them, and also understand that the journey that we're on is finite. It's a finite journey. We never know when that journey is going to come to an end. And it's something that I've learned over the past 2 to 3 years. I've come really, really in touch with that. We'll put it that way. And it's given me a new perspective on things where I know there may not be a tomorrow. And when that time comes, I truly believe that we're going to be judged based on what we've done and where we are at that point. How many times have we been warned about our behaviors or the things that we do or say or whatever, that we were supposed to get along the way that we didn't get? And what did we do and what did we excel at? I think we're going to be judged on all that kind of stuff. And I think it's important to not take that for granted each day. That's something that we do.
Absolutely, Joe. Each to their own. And absolutely, everyone's as entitled to their belief system as anyone else. Anyone's absolutely as equally entitled to whatever they identify as anyone else. As long as people aren't infringing upon the rights of others and harming other people out there, like you say, people will have to be judged in their various ways according to their own belief systems when they leave this plane. And David, he appreciates that. And when you listen to him more, he says, the only thing is we can't let that identity, the gender stuff, all that kind of things, or our belief systems, let that define us. Because we end up then building invisible walls between us and various other groups out there. And the only people that suits in the end of the day are the criminals controlling this game in the first place, Joe. Because
it's men.
It's classical divide and conquer at that stage.
It comes down to, it's just men. It's humans. That's what it is. And we're fallible. And we succumb to these greed, these behaviors, these things that we do. We all succumb to them. We all have our weaknesses, our demons, whatever you want to call them. And it's always going to be there. That's why it's so important. If you look at say DC or Parliament in London, where are all the honorable people? Where are they? You won't find them in Washington, DC or London. You won't find them there because They won't do it to themselves because they know. That's why I wouldn't do it, because I know if I get there, yeah, would I like to make change? Absolutely, I like to make change. But I also know that there's going to be a lot of things that you have to confront and contend with. And
there's one thing, standing out here looking at the game from the outside in, but even the most honourable, the most best intentioned person, we've said this before, you could go down there to Westminster in this case, or recently we had the European elections, and you might think you can kind of provoke some change that way. However, if you do manage to slip through the net, and somehow by hook or by crook you end up there, what's soon going to really materialise in front of even the best of people out there is the fact that this is a corrupt system. And even the tools that you would normally use to change the game, even they've been corrupted. And if you haven't been corrupted at that point, it's coming. And if they can't buy you out, then they'll get some dirt on you. And if they can't find dirt on you, like we've been talking about here, they've got the technology to mock some up. So even the best of intended people out there, you just can't correct our political problems with the same level of thinking that got us there in the first place, Joe. And that's the definition of insanity. It was Einstein himself said that.
That's why I appreciate, I know people think I'm crazy for saying this, but I appreciate AOC for wanting to breach things that need to be breached and said. It's not that I agree, not even in the slightest. I think that she's one of the people that got through the net, and that kind of environment's going to go straight to her head, and it already has. And it's bad stuff when that happens. You let yourself become something that you stood at one point against, and then the deception is, I'm going in to change things. That's what I'm doing. But you don't realize that you're slowly but surely being assimilated. Look at Bernie Sanders. You talk about capitalizing on fame and being a senator and all this kind of stuff. Here he is talking about, I believe in a graduated income tax, and I wasn't for those tax cuts. Well, one of the things you could do is, as part of talking the talk and walking the walk, is you don't have to pay just 21% to the federal government, a la thanks to the Trump tax cuts. You could actually pay what you think is your fair share based on what you said it was going to be. I would. I can't talk. Can't. Yeah, it's all that until he has to walk the walk. But those at the top never walk the walk. That's the problem. It's the whole human thing. Again, we put these people up on a pedestal, but they're humans. We're the ones that deify them. And it's because we're so desperate to have that association. And my question is, why? Why do you need that? When people ask me, well, Joe, what are you, a Christian? No, I'm not. Well, what are you? Well, I'm Joe. That's what I am. That's who I am. I'm no more than that. I don't claim to be a Christian. I don't claim to be a Republican. I don't claim to be white. I don't claim to be any. I'm just Joe. That's
You're just
all I am.
Infinite consciousness that is having the experience that identifies as Joe.
That's it. That's all I am. And you know what? As soon as you take that stance on things, holy moly, is it liberating. And they can't attack you for anything because it doesn't. You're going to make fun of me because I'm not political or what? What are you going to do? Yeah. There are so many other things, Kev, that take like levels of importance. All that crap is just noise. It's just noise.
Absolutely, dude. And, David even touched on the fact that, the alternative media, it shouldn't be our job. In fact, we shouldn't even dare try to take sides politically. All we should be there to do is give people the information. And more so recently, Joe, that's exactly what we've been trying to do. I've got this tagline where I provide and I let you decide. And in the build-up to Trump coming in, this is where things went wrong, wasn't it? Because we've seen alternative media taking sides, and they did. They sent so many people way back to sleep, thinking that they would actually get change just because somebody comes along saying exactly what they want to hear.
It used to be back in the day. Media organizations used to at least pretend that they were impartial, but now they all take sides, and it was on purpose. You got to remember, all of these cable news networks and TV stations are all owned by the same group of people.
And Joe, even alternative media has become like that ever since like 2015, 2016.
But they mimic it. They mimic what they don't, they mimic the beast or whatever it is that they're fighting against. Look at Jones. Jones went from somebody who said, basically don't believe in the false left-right paradigm, all that kind of stuff.
He was as instrumental as
Trump.
Yeah, he was as instrumental as Icke was at waking people up to that illusion.
Absolutely. I don't know what the hell happened. And, to each their own. If he wants to do that, great. Best of luck to you.
I get it, Joe. Maybe, you get a candidate coming along, and, it's no criticism of Jones to say he's got an ego. It'd be blind to say he hasn't got an ego.
Do.
And of course, I think they kind of they played on that. They really kind of ticked all the boxes and touched him where he wanted to be touched and massaged that ego to the point where, like you say, he led thousands back into this.
Yeah, no, he certainly did. But I can't freaking believe it. I just can't believe that of all the people, it was Jones that went, oh, let's go Trump, let's go, and the righty and the Fox News and all that kind of stuff. It's like, what are you doing? And that's the thing, is that again, things have gotten so progressively worse in such a fast amount of time that there's a lot of people desperate for something to cling to, some sort of hope to cling on to. And the fact is that when you're born, first of all, if you have I don't even know what to say outside of the luck of being born like me, a white male in the United States when I was born, holy crap, that's like hitting the lottery. I could have been born anywhere else on the earth, 80% of which I would have been born into poverty and starvation, or whatever. And I was fortunate enough to be born here at this time. And then, but that's my life experience. So my life experience takes me here. I see the way that my parents had and lived their life and were able to accumulate wealth and do all that kind of stuff. I can't do that now. So when I look at that and I aspire to at least that, I mean, yeah, it makes you feel kind of hopeless. Holy moly, I can't even achieve that. Then what? What are my kids going to have? And you see this kind of gradual decline. So you tend to cling to anything that you possibly can to give you that shred of hope that maybe, just maybe, you can have what your folks had or something like that, but it's a farce. It's gone. So
it happens every political cycle, Joe, and we'll see it starting again soon. You'll have your various dealers of opium coming along, and by dealers, I mean you'll have Trump, you'll have the Democrats that are against them, and they'll tell you everything that you might want to hear. However, the minute one of them gets into office, what really changes?
It's all snake oil.
Exactly, dude. And we've got the benefit now. We've got the advantage of having been here. And because it's a US network, I tend to speak about the US more. But we've kind of sat and observed multiple administrations now, both Democrat and Republican. And we are fair. We are unbiased because we go after all of them. And we will continue to point out this illusion, Joe, that it is a choice that people have.
It truly is. I mean, my thing is, why get involved in something that's so fake? And why perpetrate the fraud? Why continue to do it? Especially if you've taken the time to figure things out like, Ike has, and you have, and I have, and so many others that have taken the time to just open your hearts and minds to it. The truth is the truth, right? No matter what. And what happens is it will find its way to you, no matter what. If your heart's truly seeking, you will find it. And I'm just in awe tonight because everything that he said is everything that I've found in my journey, but I've never heard a word of him ever. And it's like word for word.
Exactly. I mean, we've all arrived at this kind of location, and we've all been on our independent kind of journeys, and mine heavily influenced by David Icke, Chris and Cherie Geo, before I came over onto radio, Alex Jones, things like that. And yet, all the listeners out there, they'll have various shows that they've listened to. They'll have websites that they've gone to as well. Yet we're all here. We've all ended up at the same kind of conclusion, almost, give or take some topics, But we can all see that there's a bigger game going on here. There's an agenda afoot. And that's the one thing I really loved about tonight as well, the fact that David really did get into that whole agenda-based push to take us to this new world order. In particular, the gender stuff, the trans stuff. And again, that's so important for people to understand because it can be easily labelled as hate speech. But there's absolutely nothing hateful in what we were talking about today. People are entitled to their own choices with their own lifestyles. However, it's when that thing is then used for political change, when people, who do identify as these things, Joe, become political tools to bring about that change in the end.
There's a spiritual component to it too, and it's to deface humanity because humanity is God's favorite. It truly is, and that's something that's miffed some of the darker side of things, the fallen ones and things like that. So Joe, there is an agenda afoot.
Yeah, even people not into Christianity, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Just look at the game. Look at what's happening, and you can see social media. You can see media in general. And you can see the mainstream media, if they're not banning talk of Christianity altogether, then they're just ignoring it, And that's not to say Christianity is better than anything else, but when these people are trying to occult it and hide it and almost ban it, that's when you have to say to yourself, what's going on here?
Now, we talk in parallels. A lot of different people will have followed different paths to their enlightenment. And, but we all speak the same language. It's just kind of different. We're saying the same thing. Our journeys get us to the same. Here we are. How the hell did we all get here?
And yet, for so many people, Joe, that would be enough to divide them. The fact that we have taken different steps to get here, because you see it so much nowadays, not even just in the truth community, but on the whole, in particular on social media. If you don't say exactly the one thing that somebody wants you to say and you differ in any way, you see this, it's almost an attack mentality. And because you're not saying what people want you to say, they'll eventually call it hate speech. And we're so divided at a time when really we're so close to coming together.
Yeah, for real. And I mean, this is a great example of it, So I went down the historical slant, biblical side of things. You go the scientific side of things, and somehow, some way, we ended up going and right into it, And then your life experience helped complement mine and vice versa, and actually complemented the two. And funny enough, it was kind of like engineered, if you ask me, to get to that point. It was we didn't have any control over that, and the other people that we associate with, and we've kind of come together with over the course of independent media. It's the same thing, Kev. And we're all facing trials and tribulations unlike anything we've ever faced. All of us are, in this thing that we're doing. So
no, absolutely. And it's almost that invisible quantum connections that we do all have. Some are stronger than others.
It's crazy.
Yep, absolutely.
You can't explain it.
It's like you were saying there, me and you, we absolutely kind of complement and supplement each other. Because without one another, I don't think we would be in the mindset that we are today. And We used to
Yeah.
often share a joke, the fact I would come from science, he would come at the other end of the spectrum. But
Yeah.
over time, and I think it's quantum, really, that's the one thing that kind of bridges
It tied it all
spirituality.
together.
Yeah, spirituality and the real world. And for anyone out there, we are in a spiritual battle. It's raging. David talks about the pure evil, that's really the dark force pushing all of these agendas, pushing these characters that we know. And I'm not talking about the George Soros and the royal families of the world. We know them. I'm talking about something, far more nefarious in nature. It's like staring true evil in the face, Joe. And it's not in this dimension, but it's close.
Yep. No, very much so. That's why it's important that you not get distracted by all of the distraction that's out there. And they're going to throw some distraction at you. It's going to be economic. It's going to be catastrophic. It could be anything. And it's going to come from the most unsuspecting places. But the biggest thing that anybody can do is not fall for it. And they'll get personal, because this isn't just a battle in this physical realm. A lot of that power transcends this. And you're going to say to yourself, well, how the hell did they know? Or how the heck did this happen? And that's where having an open mind and just keeping your heart open to the truth, you'll find it. It'll find you. And that's the biggest thing. And then share your experiences. Share it with everybody. It's important to branch out, because you never know how something that you've gone through can help somebody else.
Join us after the break. We'll be continuing this brilliant conversation with Joe Joseph on the Freedom Link. So wherever you are, make it and keep it TFR. And definitely didn't touch that dial, because we will be right back. David Icke, ladies and gentlemen. I promised you would get him. Oh, did we get him. Join us after the break.